On the first of every month, $1,500 leaves your account. Rent paid. And for a moment, there is relief. But the math behind that transaction tells a different story. At $1,500 a month, that is $18,000 a year. Over 4 years, that is $72,000 paid to another person, generating no equity, no ownership, and no return. The money does not disappear. It transfers directly into your landlord's balance sheet, paying down their mortgage, building their equity, and funding their long-term wealth. The mechanism is legal, normalized, and entirely one-directional. My name is Bobby, and this channel examines the financial systems that quietly extract wealth from working people. If you have ever wondered why consistent rent payments leave nothing behind, subscribe and stay through this video. We are going to run the numbers your landlord has no interest in sharing with you. Renting is not simply an expense. It is a wealth transfer. Every month, money moves from your account into your landlord's net worth in the form of equity. The ownership stake in a property that appreciates over time and can be borrowed against, sold, or passed down. You fund that process. You receive none of it. The historical context matters. In 1970, the average American renter spent between 20 and 25% of their income on housing. That was the accepted standard. Enough to cover shelter while leaving room for savings and basic financial stability. According to data from Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies, the median renter today spends over 30% of their income on rent. In cities such as Los Angeles, New York, Miami, and Austin, that figure reaches 40, 50, and in some cases 60%. Wages have not kept pace with that shift. The result is that renting, once a manageable cost, now consumes a share of income that leaves little room for accumulation. The mechanics of the transfer are straightforward. A landlord purchases a property for $200,000. They put 20% down, $40,000, and take out a mortgage of $160,000 at 4% interest. Their monthly payment is approximately $760. They charge $1,500 in rent. The monthly cash flow after the mortgage is $740. Over a year, that is $8,880 in profit from a single unit. That figure does not account for equity accumulation. Over 10 years, mortgage principal paydown builds between $40,000 and $60,000 in additional net worth, nor does it account for appreciation. A $200,000 property appreciating at 4% annually reaches approximately $296,000 over that same period. The landlord's initial $40,000 investment grows to roughly $140,000 in net worth. The rent payments funded a significant portion of that outcome. Over 10 years, at $1,500 per month, the tenant pays $180,000. The landlord builds 6 figures in wealth. The tenant builds none. The opportunity cost compounds that loss further. $1,500 per month invested in an index fund with an 8% annual return, the historical average for the S&P 500, would grow to approximately $275,000 over 10 years. Over 20 years, that figure rises to around $880,000. Over 30 years, it approaches $2.2 million. A renter is not only forfeiting equity in someone else's property. They are forfeiting the compounding value of capital that flows out each month with no return. The individual landlord is one part of this picture. Over the past decade, institutional investors have significantly expanded their presence in the residential rental market. Companies such as Invitation Homes and American Homes for Rent along with large private equity firms, have acquired single-family homes and apartment buildings at scale. According to data from the National Association of Realtors, institutional investors purchased close to 30% of all single-family homes sold in certain markets in recent years. These purchases are made for one purpose: rental income. Unlike individual property owners, institutional landlords operate with explicit profit maximization mandates. When a significant share of rental inventory in a given market is controlled by a small number of large entities, competitive pressure on rent pricing decreases. Rents rise. Tenant leverage falls. The standard response to this analysis is home ownership. If renting transfers wealth to a landlord, buying builds equity for the buyer. In theory, that is correct. In practice, the path to ownership has narrowed considerably. The median home price in the United States is currently over $400,000. A 20% down payment on that figure is $80,000. The median American holds less than $8,000 in savings. When rent consumes 40% or more of monthly income, the savings rate required to close that gap is mathematically unavailable to most renters. The barrier to exit is embedded in the cost of staying. There are, however, practical steps that can change the trajectory. The first distinction worth making is between unavoidable renting and passive renting. Renting because ownership is not financially accessible is a circumstance. Renting indefinitely without a plan, a timeline, or an awareness of alternatives is a different matter. The former is a constraint. The latter is a default that compounds over time. Tracking the cumulative cost of rent creates a reference point for decision-making. A renter who has paid $72,000 over 4 years has a concrete figure to measure against the cost of pursuing ownership. Down payment accumulation requires a dedicated account and consistent contributions, but the threshold is often lower than renters assume. The FHA loan program allows down payments as low as 3.5%. On a $250,000 property, that is $8,750. Many states offer first-time homebuyer programs that include down payment assistance, reduced interest rates, or closing cost support. These programs are underutilized largely because they are not widely communicated to renters. Lease negotiation is another underused option. Landlord vacancy has a cost: lost rent, cleaning, repairs, and the time required to find a replacement tenant. A sitting tenant asking for a rate hold or a modest reduction in exchange for a longer lease commitment has genuine leverage, particularly in markets where vacancy rates are rising. For renters who can qualify for a mortgage, multi-unit properties present a structural alternative. Purchasing a duplex or small multifamily building and occupying one unit while renting others can generate rental income that offsets or eliminates the mortgage payment. The renter becomes the equity holder. The financial direction reverses. The rent trap is not a problem of personal discipline. It is a structural condition in which the cost of housing consumes the capital that would otherwise be used to exit it. Institutional ownership patterns, wage stagnation relative to rent growth, and the widening gap between savings and down payment requirements have made that condition more acute over time. Understanding the math does not resolve the structural problem, but it reframes the decision-making context. Renters who treat each payment as a fixed, permanent cost with no alternative are in a fundamentally different position than those who track the cumulative transfer, research available programs, and build toward a defined exit point. The money leaving your account on the first of every month is building something. The question is whether it is building anything for you. If this video gave you a clearer picture of how rental economics work, Subscribe to BrokeMath for more analysis on the financial systems shaping everyday decisions. Share it with someone currently renting who has not run these numbers.